Hi, welcome to History Respawned. I'm your host, Bob Whitaker. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at Assassin's Creed Mirage, the new entry, mainline entry in the Assassin's Creed series, starring protagonist Basim. And joining me on this episode to take a look at this new Assassin's Creed game is my co-host on History Respawn, Dr. John Harney. John, welcome to Baghdad, 9th century.
Bob, it's good to be back in Baghdad, the 9th century. I think I played the first game shortly after we met.
Yes.
Didn't we?
Yes.
That was around the time we first met, was the first game came out.
Yeah, so it's been 15 years since AC1 came out, and we are returning to the medieval Middle East. And this time we are following Basim, who is kind of a side character, important character in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's already been 3 years since Valhalla came out, John. I don't know if you can believe that. Yeah. So now, Basim, we are here in Baghdad, following him as he is joined. Not the assassins yet. They still call themselves the Hidden Ones. But he is basically part of the assassins group, and he is rising through the ranks. And he is about 10 years before he gets involved in the storyline for Valhalla. So John, I've been playing this. I've got been given a review copy from Ubisoft. Many thanks to them. And so I'm about 10 hours into this game, but I have loaded up a save here from I'd say about 3 hours into the game. And I've done that to avoid kind of any major spoilers or anything like that. So this is kind of past the opening sequence, past the tutorial section, and now just here living it up in Baghdad. And John, let me tell you just right off the bat that this game is very much a callback to the origins of Assassin's Creed. AC1, AC2, AC Brotherhood. If you enjoyed those games, this game is going to be right up your alley. Absolutely right up your alley.
Well, that's it, because I was going to ask you what you thought of it, but I'll ask it a slightly different way. I'm kind of intrigued they did this and not like a remake of Assassin's Creed. I kind of get why they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. So does it feel, quote unquote, like the good old days in that way? And if it does, is that a good thing? It kind of sounds like it is, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How does the game feel? It looks great. It looks really good, actually.
Yeah, so this is running, I've got a NVIDIA 3070 here. This is running on very high settings, and it runs really well. You see the frame rate's really good. Yeah, visually it's just as good as any of the more recent Assassin's Creed games. But this game, in kind of the vein of the original Assassin's Creed games, 1, 2, 3, maybe a little bit of 4, it's very focused on a single narrative. It is slow and deliberate, and then it doesn't have all those kind of RPG features that had made their way into the series, kind of from Origins going forward. So there is not when you're in combat, numbers don't pop off of enemies. When you are gaining levels, it is not an XP loop, right? It is just simply gaining more experience, getting certain skills. The number of inventory items have been significantly scaled down. The number of different combat options have been scaled back. So this is a very much like kind of a pared down version of Assassin's Creed, and it is much more in line with kind of earlier Assassin's Creed games than anything that's come more recently. And you ask me, is that a good thing? I say, as a middle-aged game player, I say yes, it's fantastic. Especially given the fact that I feel like I'm getting to the midway point of the story and I'm already 10 hours in. This is about 3 hours in this save, right. But so it's fantastic. But I kind of wonder, if you're a younger player, if maybe your first Assassin's Creed was, Origins or Odyssey or Valhalla, is this game, this kind of slow, deliberate, more difficult game, is this for you? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
That's an interesting point, because that's something I noticed. We're both teaching, for the most part, traditional college-age students, and so I have a lot of conversations with students who oh yeah, Valhalla, it's all right. I played 120 hours of it, and I'm like, oh my god, I just, But when you and I were in grad school 15 years ago, when the first game came out, that was kind of at the tail end of the GTA era of when a GTA game came out. It was the biggest thing imaginable that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
I guess not the tail end exactly, but it was on when 4 came out, and maybe Odyssey and Valhalla were a bit like that. This is the monstrous AAA game, and it sounds like this game is not trying to be that at all.
No,
so that's kind of fascinating to me.
No, this feels like a traditional early AC game in terms of its scope, in some ways in terms of its narrative too. And you can just take a look here at the map. Again, this is about 3 hours into the game, and you can see a beginning of kind of the outlines of the city, kind of around the Assassin's Bureau here, just kind of opening up this map, doing usual Ubisoft stuff of synchronizing viewpoints, climbing towers, etc. But you can see that the map itself doesn't extend that far beyond the city of Baghdad. And you can see all of these areas here. I've explored down into these regions later on in the game, and for the most part, they're just open deserts, right? So it's not much there, right? All of the action really is kind of in the city itself, and it's a huge city. I would say this is as big as many of the other cities in earlier Assassin's Creed games. You think about London in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. This is probably about that size in terms of the map, I would guess. But when you consider that up against Valhalla, Origins, Odyssey, this is pretty small. But I think that the size of the map, the size and scale of the world really fits the narrative as far as I've seen it so far. Just a couple of things here. Speaking in terms of kind of earlier Assassin's Creed games, there are a lot of game mechanics here that have returned from early Assassin's Creed games. So, John, if you'll remember, way back in the distant age of 2007 through 2009, a big part of Assassin's Creed games was blending in to your environment. So here we are in a small crowd, and we can kind of blend in to avoid guards. In addition, we can also hire help to get rid of notoriety. So we can hire this town crier to remove notoriety. We can also hire a musician to play music to distract the guards. And in addition to the musician, there is also, and let's see if I can find him on the map here, there are also groups of merchants that you can blend in with that will move with you. And then mercenaries, if you remember in particular from Assassin's Creed 2, hiring out mercenaries to go and attack certain guards. That mechanic is back. And then also, just like with Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, pickpocketing is also back in this. So we can use our eagle vision here, kind of look around, and there's a guy right here that has got a nice looking wallet. We can walk up to him, and we can use this kind of quick time event to snatch his purse and then run away. So all of this it's very much in line with the kind of smaller scale, more focused experience of AC1, AC2.
I'm trying to, and then, I have a couple of questions, I guess. I guess I'll first ask, then in the first game then in particular, but it's still in 2, the actual assassinations were these slightly kind of, not walled off exactly, but in theory you would case the place, or at the very least, kind of prowl around it and figure it out. And then when you did execute the target, there was this whole kind of profound "you've killed me" kind of thing that would happen every time.
Yep.
So have they brought back that element as well?
All of that stuff is in here. And in terms of casing out the place, why don't we go to one of these missions? And this is a mission that is pretty early on. You can see this is the investigation board that kind of shows me the missions. And this investigation board, this is something you saw in Odyssey and Valhalla in particular. But in that game, it was kind of really expansive, right? There was dozens and dozens of options. But in this game, they kind of slowly dole out the storyline and the targets. So you can see here, this has been kind of the first cluster of missions that I've done here in this circle. And so leading up to this culminating mission, I've done 3 other smaller missions that have, had me go and collect information about this target. So here we can look at the details here. And so you collect these clues that you've gotten from other missions leading up to this. And so our mission here is to go and free a rebel leader from a prison where he's being held by members of the Templars, members of the Order. And so at the beginning of this mission, and I'll show you how this works when we travel over there. At the beginning of this mission, you meet up with your kind of assassin's mentor, your handler, and in that meeting, you kind of go through some options as to how you can tackle this mission. So let me just run over there.
That was just so much more manageable, what you just showed as well, I
know.
I always feel overwhelmed by that stuff in the bigger games.
Yeah, Valhalla in particular, it's like dozens and dozens of options. And, speaking of feeling overwhelmed, take a look at the inventory screen, which in Valhalla and Odyssey was like 4 or 5 submenus. And in this game, it's just this. This is it. And you've got some crafting that goes on to improve your outfits or your weapons. But again, the options you've got in front of you are much more pared down compared to the absolute craziness that you saw in the RPG versions of this game.
Yeah, I am really curious because I think you and I are kind of primed a little bit to be happy about that, actually, a little bit. And I just wonder if there's a generational difference even of with this. I'm annoyed I don't have these options, Yeah.
There it is, as cruel and unforgiving.
So here we are at the prison. It's going to kind of give us the lowdown about how to approach this.
I have never been inside. In fact, I have never stood closer than this very place. It was from here that I would fly my kite.
And so far, with the game, as I've seen it, the sound design is really good. The voice acting is fantastic. You can tell they've taken a lot of care with the writing and the presentation of each one of these story missions, because they're really carrying the weight of the game, because in previous RPG versions of Assassin's Creed, it's kind of more experiential. You're kind of walking around discovering things, and in this game it's kind of no, the fun is going to be in these missions, so they've got to be really good.
Speaking of paths, I see only one, and it is not inviting.
No, we need to find a way to get you inside without being seen.
It really is setting up the kind of, this is a real case the joint vibe, isn't it? This whole thing.
Yeah. And later on in the game, you get actual assassination targets, and it's kind of the same thing where you are looking at the layout of the land and trying to pick a path to your target. And the game really, really puts an emphasis on stealth, right? So if you get seen, you can fight your way out of problems, but it's going to be really, really difficult. So here it's giving us a way to look to infiltrate the prison. So in order to kind of case the joint, we are going to use our eagle. And our eagle here is going to show us these golden, triangles, and we're going to follow these over. And each one of these gives us an option. You see the little orange thing that appeared over here. It gives us an option as to a way that we might be able to get into the prison.
Huh.
So here's another one right over here. So we've got a couple of different options. I'm going to kind of fly over real fast, use my eagle boost, and kind of look around over here and see if there's anything else. I think that's it. It's been a few hours since I did this map, so I'm not really sure. Oh, I can't really remember what I did. So let's go over here to the one that's closest to us and talk to this guy.
Are you men with Ali?
We were. But it has been weeks since we have seen him, and the rebels have all but disbanded.
That is only temporary. Ali is being held in this prison.
Ali? Here? I feared him dead.
I will free him, but I need your help to get me inside.
And who are you? We want nothing more than to see our leader return, but how do I know you can be trusted?
Oh, I don't have enough tokens to give him.
I see.
So I forgot about this. So in order to get the help of mercenaries or musicians or what do you call them? Mercenaries, musicians, scribes, scholars, and merchants. You have to collect these tokens. And you can give them these tokens in order to hire them out. So you're not just giving them money. You're using these kind of tokens of favoritism to show that you're kind of in with them. And so we've got one for the scholars, but the mercenaries, they want a power token. So we've got to go find another mission that can give us a power token. And let me see if there's one of these around here.
And I guess it's open worldy in the sense that you've had that conversation with the guy, but now you can go and do something else. You can come back and all that kind of classic stuff.
And it's kind of a good thing that we're not able to complete this because what ends up happening, and I remember this now, is that you can use the mercenaries or a merchant to get into the prison. And in both instances, it takes about 30 minutes to sneak your way through the prison and to help the guy escape. Minor spoilers there. It's a big prison, right? So it's probably best that we did do that, but you can see just from that kind of opening cinematic that there's a couple of options of how to deal with each problem that you're presented with. And so again, we were saying, if remembering 2007, remembering AC1, right? AC1 was kind of the same thing where you're kind of investigating your target, coming up with a strategy, and then executing the strategy, and then getting really, really punished if you got caught, outrageously punished if that happened.
That's what made the end of the game so famously weird. That you suddenly were sword fighting your way to the top of this hill. The entire game I've gotten my ass handed to me every time I've done something like this. And I'm trying to remember, if I remember correctly, and maybe I'm misremembering, I feel like 2 was a real quantum leap in terms of let's get goofy as hell, and you're now best friends with Leonardo da Vinci and stuff.
Yes.
So is there any of that in this without spoilers? I mean, I guess the setting is a little different, right? So it's the Western world at least wouldn't be as familiar with people,
right? And so you come across some of the leaders, come across a couple of famous scholars, but as far as a kind of Da Vinci type, I can't really say that. And all due respect to the audience, John and I are not experts on. Well, I could speak for myself. I am not an expert on.
No, you can speak for me too. You're correct.
I'm not an expert on this world in the Middle Ages, in the Middle East. But there you have it. It's not quite like that. So I've got this contract here, and I'll show this again up on the investigation board. I've got this contract here to help a rebel spy escape the Prince's Palace. And so one of the rewards for this is one of these power tokens. So I'm gonna go do this. And this kind of gives you a sense of the mission structure here a little bit. So I'm gonna sneak in. You can see in the red, we're in a restricted area. So I've got to be careful about who sees me, if me. All right, let's see if this works here. All right, sorry everybody. The game crashed, so apologies there. The game, I will say, has been running really stably for me, but it just had a big hiccup here and crashed to desktop right as John and I were talking at the beginning of this mission. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen again, and let's continue trying to save this concubine from this group of, I don't know, I think they're royal guards. They're supposed to be royal guards. So
okay.
They're not necessarily order members. They're not Templars. They're just stooges. They're what do you call it? Co-conspirators.
And we're pretty confident that the classic, whatever it is, 32 gig day one download you have to do will fix this. Oh, look at that.
Oh, that was not good.
Immediately. Oh, I must record my defense, he says.
My bad there. Usually,
so yeah, that was, go on, sorry.
Usually I'm a little bit smoother, but I accidentally just ran into that guy, so that wasn't so great.
I'll slay you when I find you.
But also they can really mess you up. This is not, they really do seem to not want you to fight it out too much.
Yep. Stealth is best. Okay, somebody's still looking for me, but I was able to take out one other guard. Lots of great rugs in this game, as perhaps you'd expect from this era of history.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm sorry I keep saying the same thing, but it just looks really good.
It does, yeah. It's beautiful. Okay, let's see. Let me use my eagle vision, see what's around me. Okay, there's a guard up there. There's another guard down here. So I think it might be better off trying to take out that guy up there before I keep going. Let's see what I can manage. Maybe I can just call him over here. Oh yeah, this is gonna work. Watch this.
Wait, what?
Oh, hopefully nobody saw me. Apologies. Don't look closer. Nope, it's fine. Everything's fine. Don't mind me. Nice. Okay. Let's see. So
I do like that video game element of, like, the bodies are piling up, but nobody's checked yet, so you're good. You know,
yeah. And it's got the old school stuff where you can loot the bodies, and then you can also pick them up and replace them places. I wonder if I can put them in here. Oh yeah, here we go. Bam. Let's see if we can we add to that total? Let's see if we can do three bodies in here. Serious scholarly work going on at this moment in time.
This is how they would sell, like, a dresser in the 10th century in Baghdad. You could fit 3-4 guys in here, no problem. Come on. It's gotta,
there we go. All
look at that.
Now disappeared. So now all I have to do in order to collect the reward is I have to escape. Let's see if I can get out of here. Need to
see
find...
this. I'm starting to see this as maybe the perfect middle-aged person game, because I'm like, you throw it on, you do something fun, you're done.
Yeah.
20 minutes, bing bang boom.
Here we go. Oh well, that was rough. That was a rough landing.
That would have been a crappy way to lose the do not take any damage thing. So it's good to think you got it out early.
That's a really, really great point, John. So there we are. We've got the tokens that have just popped up. We've got some ingots that we can use to upgrade our stuff. And then if we wanted to, we could go back and try to complete this mission over here, but I think that's going to take a while. But let me show you some other parts of the game. Let me fast travel to the kind of assassin's headquarters here in Baghdad so you can get a look at this.
The map seems really indicative to me of, like, you can see the newer game's influence. You know what I mean? You can see the lessons they've learned in 15 years being applied to the original idea. The maps are fantastic. Yeah,
they're gorgeous. Okay, so in a throwback to Assassin's Creed 1, we've got the Assassin's Bureau, which has got this lovely rug
Look at that.
X marks the spot right here. And then, John, do you remember the entrance to the Assassin's Bureau in the first game? It was not through a door, not through a window, but through this kind of weird veranda courtyard thing. And then the door was down here. So it's almost the exact same entrance as Assassin's Creed 1, which I thought was a nice little callback. And so this is the Bureau. This is where you get most of the main story missions, but you've also got these contracts. And these contracts, these are kind of like side missions that you can pick up, and you can see the rewards are related to each one of the groups that provide tokens. So here's one that gives you a green token, which is for merchants. Here's one that gives you a power token for mercenaries. And then here's the one for the scribes, which gives you the silver token. So you can pick these up and they'll give you the tokens, but then also like weapons and crafting supplies. And most of these that I've done have taken, about 15 minutes. So like you were saying, if you're just into coming in, popping into the game and playing for 15 minutes to half an hour, these are really fun for that kind of gameplay.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem these days is sometimes I do play for an hour, but there's just no guarantee. And it looks like it's not skimpy with the resources either, so it's not like you're grinding to pay off a mercenary or whatever.
100%. So we've got the Ibn Musa here, who is kind of the Da Vinci of AC Mirage. He provides you with new tools, new gadgets, and so I'll show you some of those here. You've got a throwing knife. The torch you get automatically. You don't have to invent fire or anything like that. But you've got a throwing knife. Eventually you get a blow dart here. The smoke bomb is here. I think this is a trap. I can't remember what that one is. And then this one's a noise maker. So as you progress in the story, you kind of unlock these tools, and then they will show up. And I'll show you where these come up. These will show up in your. I think I've got to leave this room actually to do this. Show up in your quick access wheel, which is right trigger and then right stick, and then you can pick up and you can throw a knife if you want to. Bam. So
I can ask you not really a historical question, more of a nerdy question. So you can feel free to plead the fifth if you were worrying about spoilers. I mean, are we getting Animus stuff in this game? Is there any sense of how it's clicking into larger stuff, or does it feel very much like this is a separate thing we're doing?
Yeah, so I don't want to get too spoilery, but I will say off the bat that this is a game that could definitely be played without any knowledge of what transpired in Valhalla with Basim. So don't really need to know anything about that story, how he plays into the end game of Valhalla. Don't have to know anything about that. And as far as the Animus is concerned, there's a smidge at the very beginning that kind of points to the non-historical context of this game, but so far 99% of this game has been in Baghdad in the 9th century. Now, it is interesting that you kind of talked for a moment there about the Animus and kind of Animus glitches. So that brings us to the historical content in this game. So let me show you the map. And on the map, we have got over to the right our codex. And so the codex, this has been a part of, most Assassin's Creed games dating back to the first one, where you've got a database that includes descriptions of different people that you encounter in the game. And these are kind of fictional based, a little bit of historical detail here. You've also got a section for tutorials, which can be very handy, especially when it comes to combat. But then they've also got this section of history of Baghdad. And so you'll see here that you've got these different entries for different topics: economy, government, court life, beliefs, daily life, arts, and science. And these entries are very, very similar to the kind of encyclopedic entries from Discovery Tour modes. So much so that they've got the historical detail here, but then they've also got the image number or the archival access number included with whatever primary source they put up here. So in order to find these, you see they're not all unlocked at the beginning. In order to find these, you've got to discover basically animus glitches here that are listed as historical sites. So let's go visit. Is there one that's closer by? Let me see if there's one that's closer. Oh yeah, here's one. Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
Let's go over here.
We talk about this all the time with Assassin's Creed and History Respawned, and I know we've both had conversations with students like this as well, where not that they're learning history from the games exactly, but like they definitely have a lot of they give a lot of credence to codex stuff and history stuff, and so that historical sites is cool. I don't know. I guess it goes without saying an Assassin's Creed game, but I don't know. The game seems to be using space in very intentional ways, which is interesting to me. You know, it's like go to this quote unquote historical site. So that becomes, I don't know. But you could have a lot of fun with that. In fact, you could in a class. I think you could have a lot of fun teaching that. Talk like, why do you think they chose this site? You know, let's talk about it. That kind of stuff.
So here we come, Damascus Gate, and see this kind of weird animus glitch. And this is kind of something out of Assassin's Creed 2, right? You remember in Assassin's Creed 2 the kind of collectibles built around the glitches. And so let's see what this one does. So you pick up one of those and it gives you a codex entry about the Abbasid Revolution. Yeah, so here it is. And so we've got this historical entry here, pretty long-winded, you know, if I've got to say. And then this map to go along with it. So you can kind of see the extent of this 9th century empire, you know, the control of the caliphate in the 9th century, you know, extending from North Africa all the way to India, modern day India and Pakistan. So, yeah, so I think, I'm not sure, but I think these entries, if you collect them all, you probably get some kind of in-game reward. But, you know, here at History Respawn, you know, knowledge itself is better than any kind of cosmetic update you could get. So,
indeed,
yeah. So let's go visit another one real fast, and then we can kind of wrap things up just so you can see. Maybe.
So you could have like the most, you know, a super enjoyable version of like Wikipedia holes, you know.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I do the boring one of reading. Wikipedia links are taking me article to article. This is a much more fun version to doing that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you get to murder people here. You know?
That's right.
Wikipedia, not quite an option yet. So
you did clarify earlier that you know, they've brought back the feeling bad about murdering part, so it's kind of cradling them in your arms as they breathe their last. Yeah.
Another thing they've brought back, and you kind of noticed this, by the way, I'm struggling a bit, is that you can't simply scale anything. You've got to look for these handholds to go up and down. So you can see these kind of bricks that are sticking out. So it's not too difficult on these buildings, but when you get to one of the viewpoint towers, you've got to take a very particular path in order to get to those, in order to get to the top. So again, that's kind of more similar to old school Assassin's Creed, where the climbing was kind of part of the game's puzzle.
Whereas in the big games, for understandable reasons, they decided that's just too much. It's going to create wrinkles or bumps for the players that it's not going to be fun.
100%.
Or maybe 100 hours of it is too much, because this is a real in my day moment for me. But I really like that. That just is appealing to me. That they've brought some element of, like, at least you have to think about it as they're climbing. Maybe it wouldn't go as far as saying puzzling, but and it does make me wonder, you know, how are players going to react to that? Because, you know, from my perspective, it's like, oh, this is fantastic. Yeah. But from maybe somebody who's younger or of a different inclination, they may be really turned off by this return to the old ways. I was just going to say those guys are working away on their ceramics. This is flat out museumizing here. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
Yeah, so we've got examples of the ceramics coming from Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and then the Philippe Milliard in Paris, France. I'm not familiar with that, but there you go. Yeah, so pretty cool. Inventory number, I guess, in case you want to go call it up if you go to the archive.
I was going to say, but Bob, how did they end up over there? That'll be maybe for the longer episode. You can get into that. Yeah.
And, just in case you weren't aware, because John and I are not experts, we're not really going to delve into the history of 9th century Baghdad. That's kind of one of the things that has really turned me off about historical analysis of these kind of historical games, is that a lot of people try to pass themselves off as experts on everything. And that's not what we do here. No. We are scholars, and we interview other people, other scholars who dedicate their lives to this stuff, not kind of saying like, John, you're going to all of a sudden become an expert in 9th century Baghdad. Go. That's just kind of antithetical to how this show's run. So we'll do another episode on this game with a historical expert to kind of see what they make of this experience. But I think that does it for this episode, John. Unless there's something else you want to look at or talk about, I think I've shared all of the non-spoily details that I can.
I think it was a good intro to the game as well, and I think going with the last point you made, I mean, one of the things, so, I teach a world history course, and I know, Bob, you would teach courses like that too sometimes, and so sure, I can tell you all about the Abbasids in relation to what comes after and the Ottoman, because that's the lecture I wrote at one point, and it's like having an expert in at some point is great, because when you see not just what they can do technologically, but so you popped in a minute ago and saw the ceramics, and there's people working on this kind of petty manufacturing type stuff. And it's just great to ask somebody where they can go, oh yeah, that was happening. This is the role it played in their society and so on. This is what a metal factory would have been like, or maybe this is how it's inaccurate. And you and I are like, it looks good. The game is good. So, I made this point right at the start of our conversation. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I can ask you real quick before we wrap up. I guess remaking Assassin's Creed 1 probably just didn't make sense. Like this makes more sense to do this.
I think
as
so.
A kind of a revisiting of the right.
I mean, because what they've done in years past is they've done remasters of Assassin's Creed 2, and 3, and all these other games earlier in the series. And I think with Assassin's Creed 1, you could do that, but as we've hinted at, when we played Assassin's Creed 1 back in the day, that fighting, especially at the very end, like the last hour and a half of that game, it's torturous.
It's so unfortunate.
I can't even imagine a younger player today going back and play that. Like it would be like forcing them to play original NES games, which they probably should if they want to have that historical context. But man, those games were tough, and Assassin's Creed 1 was a tough game. It was hard, and I think having this game kind of evoking a lot of the feel of the original Assassin's Creed, but then also adding in a little bit, like a little sprinkling of those newer RPG elements, I think this will go a lot further, for Ubisoft. And it will go a lot further for the players themselves, but how far will it go? Will they like it enough? I don't know, because I think a lot of those players, they probably started with Origins or Odyssey or maybe even Valhalla, and they kind of look at this and be like, oh, really? This is like so small scale.
Well, it's like,
I don't know. I don't know.
Doing our meta history stuff, we sometimes do like history of game stuff. To what extent is an Ubisoft game now like a Marvel movie or something, where like it's not good enough to do well, it's got to do well to a certain point.
Yeah.
Whether that's financially or whatever. I don't know what metrics they're focusing on. Obviously, 100%. Financial's one of them.
Yeah. I don't know.
It can't just be good; it has to be excellent.
I don't know, John. I'm glad I don't have to worry about that. I just get to play the game. But so far, like I said at the top, I'm really enjoying my experience with it. I have been asking for years for a return to the old school Assassin's Creed, and this game is definitely fulfilling that need for me. So if you are somebody who enjoys old school Assassin's Creed, have gotten overwhelmed with the kind of RPG and the kind of newer games, if you perhaps are middle-aged, this could be the perfect game for you. So that's it. That's all I got.
Cool.
All right.
I think it's pretty good.
Good. All right. Well, viewer, thank you so much. Sorry again about the crash midway through. Try to edit that out. But that does it for this episode of History Respawn. We'll be back sometime in the next month with a historical expert to talk in more detail about the setting for this game and the game itself. So until then, goodbye.